The other area of research I did for over 25 years was the future of money. The very simple thing that we use to transact our daily life has a spiritual basis for other levels of agreements that our civilization has not yet matured our will to appreciate. And everything that lies between us could become more refined by understanding what money is. It's an agreement between two or more people for something to represent a sphere of agreement for something to be done. So it invites our will. And money existed before the currencies we have. So our currencies have taken over the sphere of money or meaning or ritual, to the degree in which if people don't have money, they don't have the ritual for their life. They don't have the purpose for their life.
Life's big questions don't come with instructions, but they do come with clues. The Whole of Movement Purpose Lab is where we follow them together. Join a team forming this fall at ourlightnet.org/purpose. Hi, my name is Zenka Caro. I'm founder of LightNet, and my passion and purpose is to make the impossible possible. I am here today with Orland Bishop, who is a visionary spiritual leader, mentor, and social architect known for his profound work on the intersection of African spiritual knowledge and social healing. He has founded organizations such as the ShadeTree Multicultural Foundation in Los Angeles, where he empowers youth affected by things like violence, poverty, and systemic injustice by mentoring them, giving them rites of passage, and leading them into a new life. He is known for blending African cosmology with Western esoteric knowledge, and he is internationally recognized for his form of social healing, sacred economics, and cultural renewal. He is author of the book, The Seventh Shrine, Meditations on the African Spiritual Journey. His life's work has an incredible impact in this world, and it is often said he listens the future into being.
The earliest recollection around 5 years old. And it wasn't the purpose of what I'm to be doing out in the world, but remembering that I have the capacity to give my attention. I learned that around 5, and it brought me into the awareness that my attention is mine. The teacher in school at that time wanted my attention, but it wanted to be directed to her as an authority. And I saw the distinction between what the heart can do with someone else's attention and what her intellect, her mind wanted to do with my attention. She wanted to school my attention. I wanted to give my attention. So how do we negotiate that? I observed that at 5. And I said, why does she want to control me in a way that her heart is telling her not to? And there's this awareness that there are 2 levels of agreement powers, the mind and the heart. And I chose my heart. And from there, another kind of energy came in. The second day after that, I woke up 2 hours earlier because my heart knows what I'm to be doing differently than what the mind reality knows. It wasn't as clear then, but I track it. And I'm doing what I'm doing now because of knowing that I could concentrate my attention and come into a different state of consciousness. And I did that since childhood, to be in agreement with my family and community and the world. And then when I wanted to host my own higher purpose, I go into another state of intention. And most people do that and don't find a kind of acceptance for it, and then choose the outer task as the purpose of their life and gets overwhelmed with doing that without being fulfilled. So the fulfilling aspect is the fact that our intention is our purpose and guides us to shared purposes within the world, or we say community, belonging, and then that gets stronger. But I get to participate from the inner life into the world, not from the world into the inner life. It's something that I think over time people are realizing, that we give meaning to the world. And we search for meaning in the world, but we search for a context that will allow more of ourselves to be awakened. And that is just part of our current age. We're searching for a purposeful connection to the world. And because the archetypal world is hidden far more now than it was before. And we live in a world in which the orders of things are coming from different authorities. Economic authorities, political authorities, scientific authorities and such. And the way that those realities are defined, they do not allow people to feel authentic in them. And the most authentic thing is to give meaning. And so it starts with just recovering a sense that I could find what I'm looking for, because the higher purpose of an individual's life is to be a seer of life, to be a seeker first and then to be a seer. The seeker is the first stage, and everyone enters the world looking for some way to stay in deeper significance to this social reality. But the seer is the one that sees one's own potential and knows where to give it and how. So attention allows several things to happen. First, if you think of it like a key to a door, when I give attention, probability fields, possibility fields, and actuality fields open. So do I want something to be possible, probable, or actually real? So those are certain dynamics of attentiveness. I could go into the current reality, or I can go to alternative realities from what I give as attention. Intention now is the key to harmonize them. We call the ancient idea of magic is causing change to occur in conformity with the will. But the will in this sense is intention. To coordinate that flow of energy, how can I travel into a future where something is possible? All I'm doing is concentrating light, and it comes into manifestation. It's concentrating my awareness into intention, and knowing that it becomes more true the more it becomes a deeper perception. And I just bring it to me. I bring the future to me. It's how it happens. There's no going to the future. The future is realized by moving from possibility to probability to actuality by how we concentrate intention. And we cultivate at the same time the appropriate acceptances in our own consciousness as the field of reality changes. But I am the host. So all our bodies, in the dynamics of we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So everything that is the human body as an archetypal form constitutes all planes of existence and non-existence. We have the physical on the existence plane and the astral on the non-existence plane. Our astral body moves through this cosmos at faster than light speed, right? So when we have an imagination, what is that? It's constituted as an astral projection of our awareness into a field that is simultaneously everywhere And we're asking, can the creative world reveal their wisdom into my imagination? So it's like you're opening a field of communication to ask, is anyone listening to my imagination? Because they are. They are listening to our creative intent. And if we're true to it, they respond and mostly give us images as inspiration or feelings. So this is the artistic realm. Science is a little different, but the artist goes into realities of all the time in communicating with beings, visible and invisible, creating from that what we call art in our current reality. And it used to be known that the muses in ancient times had the activity of the deities to transfer to us. So most of our art has something of divine inspiration to it. We've made it now just a commodity, so we don't really appreciate the fact that color and tone and sound and vibrations are communications from other entities, human and divine, right? And in the natural world, we can't experience anything of the divine world without what nature hosts. So everything of our perception is because nature gives us a way to resonate with the lower vibration of these higher archetypal impulses. And so the human being moves between realities in perception and cognition to create the magic that we do in the world. But since now we've become so practical and just only focus on making things and making things within a narrower and narrower utility purpose, we don't yet understand that everything that we have formed has an activity on another level. So the activity stays in the spiritual world, the form stays in the physical world. And sacred geometry says, if I look at something, I can find its origins in the spiritual world. Everything has its origins in the spiritual world. Every thought, every form, every concept, every percept, and they're connected to beings. We only appreciate the things. We don't appreciate the beings as much anymore in the current reality, but that's going to reverse. Because the very practical world will hold all of the patterns of the higher worlds. And it's only when someone chooses to connect them that we'll see the fact that the spiritual world has never left us. We are the ones who've only grasped onto the finished realities. But we are now returning to the fact that the things that we've made have spiritual meanings to them. And we'll go back, we'll reverse. Well, the first interest for me was language. And of course, I'm born as an English speaker because that's, the culture in which I was born. But it's not the best language for higher spiritual explorations. Why? It is a utility language. It's more for explicitness and a certain way compromises. Because that's how it evolved in the cultural spaces where it was. But I found that I could use this very language and find what it's not yet saying and harmonize with it in my own intent of what the simple word could mean vibrationally. So most people say, you're saying very simple things, but it feels different. Why what you say feel so different? Because I connect it to speech, not language. Connect the language to speech. Speech is higher than language. Speech is a purposeful area of human consciousness. And if I give my language speech, it evolves to have potency and significance for, it's just a current to transfer something that is speech. The language is not important to consciousness if one knows how to meditate and say contemplate. You can dissolve the language and still hold speech in consciousness, and someone could experience it. So I found that all indigenous communities had this quality of relationship to language and speech, and it had to do with ancient wisdom of how to stay in the archetypal potential of what is being communicated and bring it through. So that's one area. I've loved poems because poems give me that. I love, the ways artists and writers and thinkers put language into different structures of cognition. And a simple word could mean something very different. The other area of research I did for over 25 years was the future of money. The very simple thing that we use to transact our daily life has a spiritual basis for other levels of agreements that our civilization has not yet matured our will to appreciate. And everything that lies between us could become more refined by understanding what money is. It's an agreement between two or more people for something to represent a sphere of agreement for something to be done. So it invites our will. And money existed before the currencies we have. So our currencies have taken over the sphere of money or meaning or ritual, to the degree in which if people don't have money, they don't have the ritual for their life. They don't have the purpose for their life. These are areas in which the currency has actually devolved our awareness of this agreement sphere. So the last 20 years been putting the agreements back into this consciousness areas in which we don't deplete ourselves and feel just emptiness and scarcity because we don't have this currency to negotiate the world with. If we hold the sphere of intent, money comes because it's a relational reality. In the next phase of civilization, it will be pure intent. But love as part of that intent. So part of the money is only preparing us to do something far more superior than a transaction. Far more, say, enriching to the inner purpose of our beingness than transacting and feeling I got what I wanted. It's supposed to be also, I contribute what is needed. Right? I contribute my will to something that's needed in the world. That's a different kind of creation. And when we know we all can contribute our will to something that's needed in the world, the abundance field grows and more imagination and inspiration can fill the world. If we know that one of the highest purpose is to trust the other human being. To navigate consciousness is either education or initiation. In the education path, more and more people are realizing that education is not sufficient for the level of consciousness that we're searching in the world for. The career path no longer allows purpose to be realized because it is a direction of a kind of inheritance in the civilization that had to do with beliefs. The age of belief is mostly finished. We can't convince people to believe in something that doesn't enhance consciousness energetically. Right? We have a truth-seeking process in our heart. Right? We're not artificial intelligences. We are human beings seeking purpose. Within that purpose is a kind of light orientation, love orientation, life orientation. And people know when they are in contact with either one of those three principles. if we are given doctrines of belief that does not have life, light, and love in its context, we drop out of school or church or mosque or whatever. And then people say, well, where is the purpose? It's found in another human being. People are looking to find each other and connect with what is hidden in the midst of our context. So in the absence of knowledge or education around purpose, we find it at the edge of culture, which is the wanderings of everyone, the 90% who does not have a purpose, is to realize they don't have a purpose in the way that purpose was oriented before, which is an educational path, the institutional path of purpose. This is now purpose that's in relationship to availability of creative life. 90%, if 90% of people are available for a purpose, that is a gift. That is a gift to choose a purpose, not to be given one, not to be assigned one by an institutional framework of reality. We now confine it by asking each other, what do you want to do with this extra energy of creativity? And two or more, when they agree that they have something to share, in the wanderings of this, they bring into consciousness the future age, the age of humanity's gift to the world, to each other, that is not inherited. Most of us are looking for a kind of inherited pattern. This inherited pattern has been dissolved a long time ago. We now have a creative motive for a civilization that comes out of the human heart, for something that we love, that we want to put into the world. So here is the will. If we put our will into the world, 90% of human potential of doing something they love out of one's creativity, it will change this world radically. We're not going and being assigned a job. We're going into the world as creators. It's the first time. So the purpose is actually to understand that the very thing that is absent is the thing that is bringing in the higher creative life. It's a more absolute purpose. The absolute purpose is for human beings to have their will back from a cultural reality. Well, yes. My biggest struggle with it was I wanted to be a scientist, a medical career-oriented person, and I after high school I went into college for that purpose, to study medicine, and I started. 8 years in, I realized, wow, it wasn't giving me the feeling that this is reality. Not that it wasn't, I mean, I saw a lot of people doing good with their work in medicine. But I realized after a friend was diagnosed with HIV AIDS in 1992, and his question to me, am I going to die? And I said, you know, like we all will, but what are you really asking? Like, how well do you want to live with whatever time we have? So I started that conversation with him. And in 3 years, between the time he was diagnosed and when he died in 1995, his purpose was fully realized, and mine. But it happened in an outer-worldly kind of phenomenon. He was in hospice. I went to visit with him, and he was sleeping. And I thought, you know, I would leave him. I'm not going to interrupt his sleep. So I was turning to leave, and he spoke. You better do what you're here to do. And I turned around and looked at him, and he was still sleeping. And I thought, I knew I heard his voice. So I'm looking at him now sleeping, and I asked, what did you say? And he spoke. You heard me. You better do what you're here to do. And I'm thinking, everything that I know is being changed right now because he is asleep and yet he's speaking. What is this? So I asked, what am I here to do? And he said, don't play games with me. You know what you're here to do, and if you don't do it, you will regret it. And I put a chair back by the bed, and I sat there and asked myself, what am I here to do? And the very thing that happened to me at 5 years old happened again at a whole nother level, which is the realization that I wasn't giving attention to the thing that needed my attention the most. My own will, my own sovereignty of thinking. I was being indoctrinated into a framework of belief that the human being cannot become human and that illnesses have more power than human being consciousness. I just didn't believe that as a child, and I started to believe it as a young adult because the authorities are telling me this is how medicine works. And I sat there and dissolved my intention of being that, recovered my awareness. And so when my friend Lazar woke up, he looked at me and he said, they don't know the kind of doctor you're supposed to be. And I thought, yeah, I don't think they do. And I didn't. I didn't know the kind of doctor I'm supposed to. So, but it was to recover this agreement power. And in that last few months of his life, actually just 1 month, we'd have the most extraordinary conversation at the highest level, where he would go into these other states, and the nurses would say it's dementia, and you're like, you know, and I said, no, these are articulations of futures that we don't yet cognize. And I just started to practice the availability of energy for these higher realities. And he died, and then I started ShadeTree Multicultural Foundation a month later, resigned from pursuing a career in medicine in that form, but found my teachers right after that to support what I really wanted to be engaged with. And, that year I went into my initiation path from 95 on to pursue this deeper truth. I'm doing it. This is part of it. This awareness that there are entities outside of the reach of the everyday mind that are always leaving signs and invitations for human beings to participate in something. But it takes a kind of radical alterations of our boundaries of belief to go into spheres where other kinds of communications happen. But this is the heart. The ancestral world has given us access to tremendous wisdom. All our histories, going back even 1,500 years, 3,000 years, are available to us in precise ways, and not just, I would say, indigenous, but classical civilizations, ancient Egypt, ancient India, ancient Greece, ancient China, ancient Japan. All of these configurations are accessible in the higher mind. We are still pursuing a belief of scarcity, and this is the only limitation. And the doctrines of the mind forces that are governed by certain authorities want to convince us that the future is limited, and that we can only accommodate a number of people on this planet. This planet is a holographic space. It expands as consciousness expands. And we have a lot of room to grow into understanding the sacred power of Earth. Well, ShadeTree Multicultural Foundation was designed to support young people finding their purpose, getting out of trouble and into community. So people call it, at that 80s, 90s, the at-risk youth. Well, every youth is at risk of following something that people don't encourage them to do. And this was the problem. you know, we've started to host young people to allow themselves to first enter into the ceremonial mind. That when the logical mind is restricted by the absence of certain formal knowledge, the initiation mind begins to open. And we so know they were seeking context for something that no one was truly acknowledging in their lives, which is the ceremonial space. And so the multicultural space is the fact that we took them through all these cultural protocols of ceremony, and they recover a sense of connection to energy, and then meaning, and then life, and then world. And so it's been 28, 29 years now that that organization has been in the world. We've moved from youth development to community development to organizational, institutional development, and now to a certain way prophetic hospitality, or hospitality for the prophetic world, the world of beings that constitutes our higher shared purpose. And so the evolution of the work now has kind of put me in a different relationship to what I'm to be doing again. And ShadeTree may not hold everything for what my particular calling is. So that might transition to someone else to hold for, because young people still need to be supported. It was known as a mentorship organization, but it's also now holding space for elders who are leaving their repository of tremendous wisdom in the world. And I'm a lineage holder for those who are to guide us through next stages of world crisis. And so it's no longer youth at risk, it's that our world is at risk if we don't have adults who understand what futures could be. Well, the advice I can share with people who are looking into the self is that two things. The time and space. Time is invisible guidance. So you may not be looking for something, you're looking for a time when everything comes into self-awareness. Everything just being your own will. There's a moment of every day when this beingness captures our will intention. We just have to be patient enough to observe it and agree with its intent. This is intention. Intention comes to a higher purpose every day. And then space being a relational context. We have to be at a location, a destiny appointment space, when this happens. So over time, someone else will recognize you when you are in your higher purpose, which is only intention. This is where the mentorship work we did. We participated in a person's life when their higher purpose is being revealed, and just encouraged them to step into it, step into the current. Then the patterns, synchronicities begin to unfold, in which we recognize, wow, signs are there to point us where to go, right? This beautiful book, The Alchemist, outlines the steps. We are given signs to guide us, and then eventually prophecies to hold us. When the higher mind gets into this other alternate state, we realize that we're not just living in a belief structure, and we just have possibilities to appreciate. We have probability fields in which things could most likely happen if we're there in those fields. And then authentically, if we are in integrity with our own will, the realization that something is manifesting because I am here. Manifestation happens because human beings are here on the physical plane on earth. As above, so below. There's so much that is prepared in the higher soul experiences that if I just say I am here, purpose gets integrated. It requires a certain integrity to incarnate my own will into me. I can't be wanting to do what someone else is doing. I have to be willing to be me. And we started working with even people in prison to say, even from there, you can find your purpose and change the space. So time is relative to what I'm willing to do. And the civilization can change when people become more willing to do what they're here to do. I am still learning that. I have to be more willing, even though I think I am willful in what I'm doing. The levels of will is so complex because there are beings of higher will that will give us their will when we are more willing. So our purpose is not about ourselves. We are hosts for higher powers that we yet can't control through our own individual will. But as a group, yes. If we find the right group, we can have more powerful will activity. And this is the agreement of, the idea of a democracy was the fact that a democracy wasn't our will, it was the will of a divine being. Ancient Greece were the will of other beings in these various sacred temples. But the academia process was the fact that people had to learn how to be true in the crafts and skills of these guilds, true to the will that they were given. So the initiates were true to their craft. Here we are not. We're manipulated to do things by other people's will. We're programmed to believe things that are not true. So we're taking that back. And it feels like we're losing purpose, but we're actually gaining more purpose by not having everything be inherited anymore. I have been probably more of a person of accompanying people to where they have to go for their destiny processes to be realized. Many I've accompanied hundreds of people, either through time or through space. Time for some measure of decades, and space in a certain way. I'm in practice with many communities that are in the process of recovering either their indigenous wisdom or their ceremonial traditions, or in a certain way their ancestral heritages. I think I'm one who was tasked with remembering times and things longer than my own existence, because I chose to be in trust with non-visible realities. And so I know that in the Akashic field, in which part of my work is to go into something that no one, very limited people could still read and understand, that the esoteric script that is that comes through the heart and comes through the blood of every human being is cultivating a clearer and clearer field of communication of what we must accept as real. And so I am here really just encourage people that the heart is going to say something to you. And this is where we recover our conscience, and then from there recover the super consciousness. And we are in that space. And again, I try to put it in words using the limited English vocabulary that I have to say things that could be understood in any language, in any form of belief, because it doesn't require belief to hear what I have to say. It's an energetic space, and my task is to share it. I can't even fill in that imagination. It is so. It's like imagine the sun, right? This sun being, which we're going to be in the eclipse in a little while, maybe already started. This sun being is a full realized purpose being. Its purpose is to give away everything it produces. Every light photon will be given away. And then the sun dies after that. How many worlds will be born by that time? What every entity would become conscious of by the time the sun gives away everything. Oh, it's phenomenal. It's in the billions of years. We can't even understand the power of such harmonic power. It's about amplifying what light generates, other states of consciousness. We could make this earth replenish everything that had become extinct. Why? Because they're only extinct from perception, not from cognition. And every cognitive being that understands their power of cognition creates by speech. In hosting a person's purpose, quest, you hold the time, you observe when is it in the day that they're most likely to call you for the level of conversation about that purpose. The first thing about a person who is looking for their purpose, they know when to look. They don't look all day. They look at a particular time. They remember this is seeking me. Right? So the seeker is also the sought. Right? It's a dialogue between intelligences that establishes the purpose. And so I've learned over the many, many years when certain people will call because whoever's reminding them is reminding them to call me to have the conversation about their purpose. And I know it was 2 in the afternoon, I know who's likely to call then, or 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 a.m., those who were night wanderers, we'll call it. So ShadeTree had a 24-hour mentorship, total availability, because the spiritual world does not have a clock. They have purpose of when they wake people up to seek something. And that's the reality of when a person is inspired to be in relationship. So time occurs in their own life, purpose, space occurs between us, and then energy is released. Something is spoken to say, this is what's happening, and then you read the signs of that. The first principle of esoteric science around purpose is acceptance of invisible guidance. The invisible world is far more real than the manifested world. In the realization of this kind of enterprise of seeking something that is mostly hidden in the will. I don't know my purpose until I do something, and it feels like magic. It feels like, wow, it changed somebody's life. I'm not just looking to do something, I'm looking to change something fundamentally, but mostly in relationship to someone else's life. We want to be understood at a level in which those who are understanding us appreciate us at the same time. So a relationship is essential for purpose. And when I can create these meaningful relationships with many, many, many people, but it's not that I just want to have a community. I want them to believe in the guidance that's articulating it. It could be the ancestors in them, because we have 5 generations of ancestral memory in the physical body. But we also have a place. The place, like Los Angeles, where we are, is guidance. It puts people into dreams all the time. It puts people into aspirations all the time. And sometimes conflict, when they don't have the right means to negotiate being in the territory of some other, experience. But if we choose to be hosts, we'll ask a person, how can I help what you're looking to do in the world? It's the most meaningful question to ask a person. The furthest, most entities the furthest they will go is leaving signs. So the symbolic world, and in the person with the synchronistic world, are signs of other intelligences weaving destiny patterns for us to. They cannot really affect consciousness directly. They don't do that. Consciousness is a self-creation, is a self-motive space. So we have three first steps that belongs to us, essentially: time, space, and pattern. We live within that. Once we get to the state of consciousness and know that I can actually put into my consciousness new intentions, then we move to the realm of being. And beings that are normally invisible will be more perceptible. They might still be invisible, but they're perceptible. So we negotiate consciousness as invisible, visible. No, it's only perceptible and recognizable. Over time, you recognize the patterns of all these communications. You recognize who is speaking by the imaginations that come, the inspirations that come. So every inspiration is actually beings communicating. We don't create that by ourselves. Yes, when our perception is awake, we go into the synchronistic world. So our perceptions normally stays within the natural world boundaries. I feel cold, I feel warm, that's natural. In synchronistic world, cognitions then begin to arise from our perception. Wow, something people call deja vu sometimes, like I'm in an experience that is also reminding me to pay attention to something that is outside of the mind, outside of reason, outside of predictability, even conformity. I am in a realization that something is altering the patterns of my everyday world, that I may actually enter into higher acceptances. Yeah, it's a perception changes, and then we realize as perception changes, so does our etheric body. Our life body is now moving to a higher vibration. That's what we call getting chills. It's like an expansion of etheric forces in the blood. Some things have just been transmuted, and I'm changed. I'm healed. I am expanded. This is a state of consciousness, of becoming more yourself. When something in the life stream connects to a state of cognition in which energy is released. I would also say, don't do it out of curiosity. Do it out of integrity. So the more integral we are with the self, because it comes with responsibilities. And the first areas of responsibility is that we have to accept certain kinds of frameworks. Like, absolute purpose is to become aware that there are other states of reality that might be revealed. That is a kind of initiatory process. It alters things in one's life. It might even make people disbelieve you for a period of time. How are you with being called, weird? All of these things changes. People quit their jobs because they no longer could, or their marriage or whatever. These things don't work anymore. And so I have to actually allow myself to feel free of things when they fall apart. because consciousness is reality. You can gain something without losing something. So if you gain more consciousness, the context of the physical world changes. So this is a kind of initiatory reality. And then a certain way, what builds first more than anything else in the outer world, our blood, is reconstituted to bring in the ancestors first. There's no future without the ancestors becoming more realized in one's own destiny. Because we carry them in our physical constitution. Memory is there. So we'll remember the fact that I have a responsibility to something that has been lived before me. So it's not curiosity. This is really powerful responsibility for life, and not just my own. And then other people come to you for help. You become a center of gravity for other people who are seeking. So in a certain way, you have to be willing to share what you have gaining, because it's energy, it's not just information. These are processes in consciousness development.
Lost the map? Good. Purpose isn't a straight line. This isn't self-help. This is soul strategy. Join us for our September teams at ourlightnet.org/purpose.